U.S. President Donald Trump has made contradictory statements on talks with Iran. On one hand, he says that negotiations with Iran are going extremely well, but at the same time, he is threatening to take Iran's Kurg Island, which is the heart of the country's oil production in the Persian Gulf. The Iranian side has been consistently denying any direct talks with U.S. In fact, the country's foreign ministry issued a statement reaffirming the stance. Ismail Baghai called the peace proposal by U.S. as unrealistic, illogical and excessive. The Speaker of Iran's parliament, Mohammad Ghalibaf, has also rejected Donald Trump's claims and called his statements a tactic to manipulate markets. Remember, Donald Trump earlier had claimed that Ghalibaf was the one authorizing the ship's passage through the Strait of Hormuz, doubling down on his previous claim that Iran is giving him a present and that the negotiations were going very well. This doesn't mean that there is a diplomatic radio silence between both the countries. Separate talks are underway with mediators like Pakistan, Egypt, Turkey and Saudi Arabia. But the offers and counter-offers are being exchanged via these mediators and not directly among the warring sides. Amid the escalation and the efforts of peace, America and Israel continue to rain fire on the battlefield. Iran is also responding in kind. The intensity of the Iranian missile attacks has come down, but the impact is now growing stronger by the day. Iranian ballistic missiles caused fire at an oil refinery in the city of Haifa today. This, remember, comes a day after another attack which caused massive fire at a chemical facility near Beersheba. The volley of Iranian attacks comes after U.S. and Israeli strikes hit Iran's universities, water plants, energy facilities and industrial hubs. Iran has also hit aluminium facilities in Bahrain and the UAE. The IDF has stepped up its bombing campaign as well in the recent days. In fact, the Israeli army says that it has hit 40 locations across Tehran in the last 2 days. And in the latest, a petrochemical plant in Iran's Tabriz city also came under attack. Now, this comes as Iran sounded alarms over the possibility of America launching a ground invasion. A massive number of American troops, remember, have gathered in West Asia. The total manpower has now reached 57,000, with USS Tripoli's arrival in the region, along with the 82nd Airborne paratroopers, making it the largest military buildup since 2003, when America had invaded Iraq. Donald Trump put out this social media post. It focuses on the opening of the Strait of Hormuz. He says that if they don't agree to a deal soon, and if it doesn't open the Strait of Hormuz here, immediately he's going to bomb Iran's civilian infrastructure. He has in fact threatened to obliterate Iran's power plants, oil wells, the Kurg Island, and possibly the water desalination plants as well. Statements on the state of war are sending out mixed signals. Is the U.S. president buying time for a possible ground invasion? Or is he seriously pursuing a path out of this war through diplomacy? That's the big question. In fact, in either case, what the Iranian side has in its plan remains crucial. Top Iranian officials say they are not willing to make concessions and they're ready to fight till the end. Both sides now have a choice to find a common ground or fight it out in the battleground. All right, let's get a perspective on this latest situation. I'm joined by Omar Ozkilisik, the non-residential fellow at the Atlantic Council. He's joining us live on the broadcast from Ankara. Omar, good evening. Welcome to the broadcast. What do you think? I want to start by asking you this. Is this war ending anytime soon because a deal is happening? Or is it going to escalate, as Iran is saying, and there will be a ground invasion, considering the fact that there are thousands of American troops on ground in West Asia as you and I speak?
I mean, we want to be hopeful that this war will end soon. And yes, definitely, there are some off-ramps to pursue by the Trump administration. that could end this war quite realistically, even though there is the potential of an Israeli spoiler war. But that being said, the developments on the ground, the past experience, and how warfare is being done all indicate that unfortunately we may be ahead of a new escalation. And this is something that worries the region and the world quite much, because if this is going to be escalated even further, the international repercussions will be much greater. But here, we also have to underline, yes, definitely the troop movements, the deployments, and the different negotiation and bargaining position of the US and Iran, and their different perception about how this war is ongoing may lead to a continuous of this war and escalation. But that being said, there is hope. And what's this hope? Even though it's not as big as the probability for this war to escalate, the hope is that Saudi Arabia, Pakistan, Turkey, and Egypt coming together, and other regional actors and international actors, the Europeans pushing for a ceasefire, may ultimately force the Trump administration, together with the energy crisis at home, to reconsider its approach and to agree to a ceasefire and negotiations. But to get the Iranian side to the negotiation table, the US would need to stop its troop deployment or need to take some actions on the ground. I don't expect that if negotiations start without a ceasefire, that these negotiations will succeed. So this is another obstacle that we face towards peace. Why both sides attack each other, it's quite difficult to negotiate. But if there's a ceasefire, and the ceasefire is again being used to transport and deploy American troops like the previous negotiation rounds, and Iran is again attacked on surprise, the Iranians will not agree to that this time. The Iranians will demand certain guarantees that the negotiations will not be exploited by the Americans for a new surprise attack. And upon all of these risks and considerations and obstacles, we have the issue of Israel. The Israeli political and geopolitical ambitions do not 100% align with the Americans. And
that's right, Omar. So, there are three different perspectives here and three differing statements that are coming out of this conflict. There's America and Donald Trump, who have been saying that, that the deal might come anytime soon and that the negotiations are ongoing, and there is new leadership. This is what Trump has said in Iran, that is negotiating with US. Then there is Iran, which is completely contradicting these statements, and they're saying this is only market manipulation and this is a cover-up for a ground invasion. And then you've got the Israeli perspective, because we know that Prime Minister Netanyahu is not going to be withdrawing anytime soon from this conflict. He has his own priorities and ambitions in this entire crisis. And therefore, where does this go? I mean, even if you have a ground invasion, how do you expect Iran to respond, considering the fact that they have been giving a befitting response and that Donald Trump has been time and again threatening a ground invasion? So obviously, Iran will be prepared for it.
I mean, we can clearly assess that Iran is prepared for this eventuality. And a ground invasion will be very costly, if not disastrous, for the United States of America. So conducting a ground assault on the Kirk Island or other parts of Iranian territory is an Herculean task. It is quite difficult, militarily speaking, and Iran has many capabilities to inflict huge casualties on the American side and on the US forces that will be on the ground. So we have to see how this will evolve. For instance, if the Americans have a ground landing, then they are receptive to Iranian drone attacks with fiber cables, who you cannot jam. And we have seen how effective Iranian drones were in this conflict. And the Iranian ground forces have their own capabilities. We have seen that Iran knows how to fight wars in Iraq when the Iran-backed Shia militias fought against ISIS with American support at that time. Or we have seen the Iranian military capabilities on the ground in Syria or in Lebanon. And these indicate that it will be quite costly for the US to do this, at least, or disastrous in the worst-case scenario. And upon all of this, the American administration will have to answer this. This war was for many in the US political spectrum, being done due to the Israeli demands. So why are American soldiers dying for the sake of the Israeli geopolitical ambitions? Why Israeli soldiers are not on the ground? So this will be another round of discussion in the US.
Yeah.
Some will argue that way, some will argue the other way, but this discussion will also complicate domestic politics for the Trump administration ahead of elections. So it's not an easy task to escalate.
Absolutely.
Usually,
It is a
it's in the best interest
complicated
of the
task. It's a
US
complicated path.